What are House Republicans even doing? The House of Representatives is the sole node of power in the federal government controlled by Republicans. I know, I work there. And tens of millions of Americans rest their hope on the House and the House alone to stop the terrible things that are going on. And so I offer you this sincere confession. We aren't putting up the fight you deserve, and it sickens me. We fought for better than this in January during the contest over the House speakership. There is plenty that needs to be done, and we have the power to do it, but we must stop fiddling around like Nero as Rome burns. I know I have a role in that too. I hear you. Joe Biden and the Democrats have created major problems, and it is incumbent upon us to solve them. On the border, our own Homeland Security Department literally built an app for the cartels. Why haven't we impeached Mayorkas? Our own Homeland Security Department literally built an app for the cartels. Why haven't we impeached Mayorkas yet? Our own leadership whips hard for big spending bills, not so much to impeach the man who has converted our border into a turnstile for thugs and criminals. The Department of Defense has become an abortion travel agency that throws drag shows on the side. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville is fighting back and fighting hard, holding up promotions until the law is followed. All of the top positions will be in limbo by the end of the year if the Pentagon doesn't get their act together. And instead of having his back, even some Senate Republicans openly criticize Senator Tuberville. They're pathetic. Tuberville previously coached college football in the SEC, so I'm guessing he's faced tougher criticism than what is offered in America's own version of the House of Lords. The ATF wants to throw you in jail for selling one gun while the Secret Service is covering up Hunter Biden's gun crimes faster than a cat covers up turds in a litter box. More on that later in the show. And federal government spending grew by 40% during COVID. Multi-trillion-dollar annual deficits are no way to run a civilized country. I can't even believe I have to say that. It is degrading and insulting to the American people to dilute their spending power so that we can fund entities like the UN, the World Health Organization, other globalist entities, and whatever Zelensky can imagine asking for next. Now Republicans are trying to sell some 1% cut after a 40% increase in federal spending as some sort of monumental win. That would be like me gaining 20 pounds and then congratulating myself for downing a bag of kale chips on the way to Dairy Queen for another dipped cone. Certainly doesn't make any sense. Donald Trump now faces 91 charges. Meanwhile, no one in the Biden family has even received a subpoena yet. Keep this in mind. At this point, during the Democrat control of Congress, when they had power, Donald Trump Jr. had already given over 8 hours of testimony under oath. He had been brought in 3 times. Now, I understand that the Oversight Committee wants a full grasp of documents before bringing Hunter in. But we can bring him in more than once, like they did to Donald Trump Jr. And if these things frustrate and anger you, welcome to my hellscape. Things won't change without force, and they weren't supposed to be this way. I'm sounding the alarm now because we all have to take ownership for this, and we have to fix it immediately. Joe Biden is taking this country and running it into the ground. And the deadline to fund government is quickly approaching, September 30th. Otherwise, we face a government shutdown. This is when many elites, all Democrats, and even some Republicans will try to convince you that the world is ending and we must continue harmful, big spending policies of Joe Biden or else.
Fall risks. House Republicans are threatening a government shutdown and an impeachment inquiry against President Biden.
Congress returns to work this week, facing an end-of-the-month deadline to fund federal agencies or risk a government shutdown.
With just a few more days until another possible government shutdown.
But no, that's not true. We need to enforce a hard line and force their hand. There are so many things we're letting them get away with. But anyone who speaks out against these policies will watch out, you're an extremist, from the White House themselves. Here's what they had to say. In a statement, they said the last thing the American people deserve is for extreme House Republicans to trigger a government shutdown that hurts our economy, undermines our disaster preparedness, and forces our troops to work without guaranteed pay. We are not extremists for wanting the best for our country. And there is no way to drain the swamp without cutting off the money and stopping its flow to Biden's weaponized government. I don't take lessons on extremism from the people who gaslit the George Floyd riots, tortured FBI whistleblowers, and then literally converted the vice presidency into an ATM machine for a ne'er-do-well son. reports are out this weekend that the Biden administration is setting up a war room with dozens of lawyers, legislative aides, and comm staffers to lead an aggressive response to impeachment inquiries. Imagine if they had put that much effort into securing the southern border, set up a war room for that. But of course, they don't care as much about your safety as they do about keeping power. And they think that power is in jeopardy. Now, one man in the House who does sincerely want to cut spending is Budget Chairman Jody Arrington of Texas. At the beginning of this Congress, Chairman Arrington presented a balanced budget plan to House Republicans. It was bold, serious, and absolutely necessary to save the country. Though Representative Arrington and I don't agree on everything, I can honestly report to you that his work inspired me, that balanced budgets are not impossible. We can actually get there and do it. But we haven't seen that balanced budget up for a vote yet. And Chairman Arrington joins us now to discuss why. Mr. Chairman, you really put on a show when you got conservatives fired up about the budget plan you presented at the beginning of this Congress. When can the American people expect to see it, and how would you describe the budget that your committee intends to mark up?
Well, Matt, it's great to be with you, and we'll be rolling out this budget. It's a 10-year fiscal framework. We call it a budget resolution. And it has all the necessary things to put our nation on a path to balance and beyond. We have to rein in the unbridled spending that's bankrupting the country, caused this cost of living crisis most recently that will destroy our leadership in the world and our children's future. So we have to do a few things. Let me summarize what's going to be in this. It'll be a couple of weeks. We've got the votes in committee, Matt, to mark it up and pass it out of committee. We want to get to 218, but this is going to be a conservative budget that focuses on right-sizing the bureaucracy, resetting at pre-COVID, pre-inflationary levels of spending on discretionary, capping at 1% through 10 years. That's $3 trillion in savings, reining in the drivers of the debt. That's entitlement spending. And there's a significant effort there to make health care and welfare work for the American people and for those who need it the most. And then ultimately, we've got to get this economy going again. We have to return to pro-work, pro-growth, pro-energy policies. And you get $3 trillion if you grow by 1% over 10 years in deficit reduction. Those are the three key pillars of our budget resolution.
Yeah, and it's music to my ears. And you heard it here first. Within the next 2 weeks, you're going to see the House budget get marked up in committee. I think that's something everyone looks forward to. Now, by this stage of the game, I was hoping that we would have the 12 individual appropriations bills moving to the floor. That hasn't happened yet. I'm concerned about that as we face a end of government funding at the end of the month. Do you share my concern that we haven't individually moved these appropriations bills to the floor?
Yeah, because it's not just about funding the government. We've got to fund the government, but we've got to fund a government that is responsive to the American people, focused on its constitutional mission. We've got to root out the woke and waste. We've got to hold this administration accountable. You know, and I know that we have power of subpoena, we have power of the purse. Those are the two levers, and we've got to use them. For example, what good is funding the government if it can't do its first and most important job, providing a common defense? And of course, this administration has totally unilaterally surrendered control of our border to the drug cartels, the terrorist drug cartels, who are flooding our country and my home state with drugs and crime. And it's the leading cause of death for people 18 to 45 in this country. We're losing 300 Americans a day. If we can't get that right, what good is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people?
I'm going to bring everybody into the room. When you counsel a lot of members of Congress about the budget and the spending cuts that we have to engage in, you have a saying. You tell folks all the easy choices are in the past. Ahead are hard choices. What are some of the hard choices that we're going to have to ask our Republican colleagues to stand with you on?
Well, to me, a lot of them aren't so hard. We have $250 billion last year in waste, fraud, and abuse. We've got to do better there. One way you do that, Matt, is states have to have skin in the game. They know how to target the people who need these resources, and they they will have better controls if they're responsible and accountable for the money being spent well. But you got health care and welfare. Those are the two big drivers on the entitlement side. And it's not that hard to expect people who are work capable to work. We did modest efforts in the debt ceiling deal to that end, but there's much more to be done, not only in food stamps, Medicaid, and other means-tested welfare programs. But look, it's also not hard to reverse Biden's...
No doubt, Mr. Chairman, we need those welfare to work programs. Now, I do want to get your reaction to this. The Biden administration rejects the argument that government spending is inducing this inflation. Take a listen.
So I'm sick of this stuff. We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. Simply not true.
So, Chairman Arrington, what's your best evidence to the contrary?
Well, it's insulting. And even Democrat economists like Jason Furman, Larry Summers, they warned, as Republicans did, that the $11 trillion in spending over the last 2 years, 6 of which went to the national debt, all of which went to a cost of living crisis, record hikes in interest rates, in an economy that's stagnant at best and has an outlook of a potential recession. This was caused by runaway spending and failed economic policies like paying people to stay home instead of return to work after the government shutdowns, among other things.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we look forward to seeing that budget, getting those spending cuts. Chairman of the House Budget Committee, Jody Arrington, we look forward to seeing it soon. Thanks for joining me.
God bless.